Bully is one of my favourite games of all time. There's no denying nostalgia has a massive part to play in this, but every time I've replayed it, it just holds up and it's an amazing amount of fun. I played other Rockstar games around the same time as a kid, like GTA 3, Vice City, San Andreas, and while I love these games as well, they just didn't have the lasting impact that Bully did for some reason. Now, there's no doubt Rockstar was on a hot streak around this time, but in their large portfolio, Bully is definitely an underdog, and while a lot of people definitely hold it as one of their favourites, the numbers are clear. It's one of the company's least sold games, even being beaten by franchises such as LA Noire and Max Payne. So why is it that Bully stands out so much to me? I'm going to do my best to explain what I love about the game so much, as hard as it may be to verbalise, as well as talking about some of its shortfalls and giving the game a kind of final rating. So let's start with graphics. Starting with a shortfall here. The graphics for Bully are pretty bad, even worse than I remember. Every time I load the game, I'm surprised by how bad it looks compared to my memory. That being said, taken as a product of its time, they're okay for 2006. Not the best on the market even still, but decent. They're probably a slight improvement on San Andreas, but it was 2 years later. Either way, you do adapt after a short amount of time playing, but the graphics aren't exactly easy on the eyes and definitely not a strong point of the game. So, to be fair, compared to current games, I'd probably give it 40 out of 100. Gameplay. Now, the actual gameplay of Bully might not be for everyone. There's no shooting, no fast cars, no explosions, no crazy gameplay mechanics. That being said, it is still an incredibly enjoyable gameplay experience. Bully relies heavily on its story, though it doesn't drag you through it as an observer like some story games. It is fun to play, from the fighting, which is surprisingly more fun than it looks, to the vehicles it does allow the player to use, progressing from the skateboard, to the bike, to the moped, and even a go-kart. The game certainly has a unique charm to it. The map size compared to the speed that you're able to traverse it is well balanced, making travel fun rather than a chore like it is in some games. The individual missions that the game actually gives you gives different objectives. It's very skillful in its use of variety to keep the player entertained. It's not just fight after fight and there's not many filler missions. You might have to collect something in one mission, the next one might be a stealth mission, the next one might be taking pictures, then a fight, then a race. The activities in Bully are endless, and it's definitely varied. On top of this, there's a special feature unique to Bully, which is the classes. Players progress through 5 levels of different subjects, such as English, Maths, Chemistry, etc., and in Scholarship Edition there's just so many more. These lessons are actually a lot of fun, and I enjoyed them so much as a kid. They're kind of like mini-games which can be ignored altogether, but the game actually makes it a task for you to avoid them, if the player chooses to do so. With prefects acting as a kind of wanted level compared to some of the Rockstar games, and they'll try and catch you if you're playing truant. All being said and done, Bully's gameplay might not be as stimulating as some run and gun type games, but it's very unique and very entertaining in its own right, and I'd probably give it an 85 out of 100. The map and the visuals. So the map for Bully, as stated earlier, it's a good proportion compared to the speed that the player is able to traverse it. It's not too rough to manoeuvre, though there are a few sort of dead ends in the map that can be annoying to go to and from. But in most locations, the game offers fast travel. So they have bus stops, which take you back to the school, and you can purposely be caught by prefects to get to classes or by police to get back to the school. And that's probably not intentional game design, but a lot of players use it like that. Either way, I never personally found travel to be tedious. I enjoyed the scenery, with the Bully map having a definite charm to it, and at this point I remember the layout like the back of my hand. The game starts with the school gates being closed, meaning there's only a small map, but I think this creates more excitement as the map gets unlocked and prevents the player from becoming tired of the map too quick and wasting time early game exploring needless areas. There's a clear progression of where the story takes place in the map. The school building itself is iconic. There's a few nice touches like weather progression throughout the story, with chapter 3 taking place in the snow, and then it melts and disappears for the next chapters, and of course for the endless summer. I'm giving the map for Bully a fair 80 out of 100. Now, the soundtrack. So the soundtrack for Bully is amazing. The main theme gives me genuine goosebumps every time I hear it, and just instantly throws me back in time. The sounds it uses are so unique, with bell chimes and bass strings. There's just nothing quite like it. The sneaking music still gives me anxiety or stresses me out. The walking theme played pretty much non-stop during the gameplay of this game. so that's definitely ingrained in every player's mind. But after all those hours of it playing, it's not even annoying. The bass guitar is just so cool, and the ambient kind of music that I would love to have in the background of games when I'm just walking around. Seriously, if you haven't played this game even, just go and give the soundtrack a listen. The Nerds theme, it just doesn't need to go that hard. The prefect chase music inspires horror, and Johnny Vincent's theme having the sound of typical Greaser tunes. Every song just incorporates something special depending on its meaning, and it is truly one of those soundtracks that just goes above and beyond. I mean, it's impossible for me to pick a favourite track on it. Also, little side note, the YouTube comments on these soundtracks are pure gold, and I'm just so happy that there are people who understand the kind of inexplicable effect these songs have that just last throughout time. I don't know how some soundtracks hold the power that they do to stick in people's minds, but Bully is one of the great examples. The soundtrack will always occupy some space in my brain. It is one of my all-time favourite game soundtracks, and I think it's fair to give it a 98 out of 100. The story. Now, spoilers ahead for this one. It's a game from 2006, so I think that's okay by now. But that being said, if you haven't played the story, please genuinely go and at least watch gameplay of it, because the story is phenomenal and everyone should experience it how it was intended. So the game has amazing humour, it's hilarious at points, and amazing characters who are all fleshed out to have unique characteristics or issues, which some characters get like kind of little arcs, which is cool, just on their own right. Predominantly the game follows Jimmy, which is who you play as, a high school student who's been abandoned by his parents at an extremely rough, violent school. In the schools there's various cliques. There's the nerds, the greasers, the jocks, the preps, there's bullies, and there's townies. Through the game, Jimmy tries to earn respect from all the various groups to try and make his time at Bullsworth a little easier, and to get revenge on the leaders of each group who, all quite frankly, are sociopaths with their own individual quirks and issues. But the big bad of the story, the real enemy all along, is Gary. This sociopath makes the other sociopaths look sane. Though he presents himself as your friend initially, he secretly pulls all of the strings throughout the entire story to prey on your downfall and ruin your life, for no other reason than his own schizophrenic delusions. This culminates in an epic final fight on top of the school building, creating a sense of satisfaction you can only understand if you've played through it all. The story is amazing, memorable, has mind-blowing twists, great comedy, great characters, and such a satisfying ending. I would give the story for Bully a 95 out of 100. Replayability. Now, when I total up the scores, this category is weighted for a little bit less than the other categories because I don't think it's as important. You can have a phenomenal game that you kind of just play once and leave it there, but while some might find replaying Bully pointless or tedious as the story is the same, there's no alternative endings or anything as such, I personally find it very replayable, just due to my own enjoyment. I've played through the game probably more than 10 times, completing it definitely at least 5 times, and I'm sure compared to some of you, those are rookie numbers. Bully is a game I will come back to time and time again, making it very replayable to me. However, I do understand it's not the type of game that the average person would finish and then immediately just restart, so I think it's about right to give it a 75 out of 100. So overall, the scores average out to a 79.4%, which I think is very low, but it's hindered of course by the low graphics rating. Graphics are important in games, and for the newcomer it could be off-putting, so it's fair enough. If you're looking at this objectively, from the modern day lens, it's probably like an 80%, but if you remove graphics as a factor, if you don't care about that, it comes out closer to a 90%, which I think is a much more fair score. It is one of my favourite games of all time, and I sincerely hope that someday we do get Bully 2. If they made graphics amazing in that game, then it would be a 90 just of its own, as long as the gameplay was actually as good. I mean, that's what's important. If they do ever make Bully 2, they would need to take into account everything that made the original as great as it did, which is a very difficult task. To encapsulate the vibe of the first game without cheaping out on things like soundtrack or dialogue, or any smaller details that just makes the first game feel so special. Bully fans are looking for an experience similar to the first game, not just some violent school game. If the day ever did come, I'm sure Rockstar would be down for the job. They are a phenomenal company who always do well with their games and sequels. And to say Bully's the best Rockstar game is definitely a controversial thing to do. I understand they have a lot of amazing games, and compare it to games like GTA 5, Red Dead 2, it just couldn't compare. The graphics, the gameplay mechanics, they're just objectively better games. However, as someone who loves GTA 5 and all the Rockstar games and has put hundreds of hours into them, there's just still something so special about Bully. And all those things considered, graphics included, if someone came up to me and asked me what's my favourite game, GTA 5 or Bully, I'd have to think about it, which says a lot considering the massive time gap between the two games and the amazing things that GTA 5 is able to do, yet Bully just still compares to it to me somehow. So yeah, let me know what you think, what you'd rate the game, and thanks for watching.